I'm Ajo John Madden back up in my hotel room on Saturday. It's almost Sunday. It's like 11:45 p.m. on the 1st of April. And this is not an April Fool's prank. I'm on a roll about my mom, so I want to tell some more stories about my mom. And this is about her relationship to alcohol. Now, their generation, my mom was born in 1913 and my dad was 11 years older, so like 1902, I think. Working class Irish. And, the working class Irish, when they came to the U.S., got greeted with the exact same stereotypes that black people did. They're subhuman, they'll never really fit in, they're really going to hurt our culture, the influx of all these not quite people. So they were, they were up against a lot of tough stuff. And the Catholic Church was mostly an oppressive thing in their lives, as far as I can tell. Belief that God could hate you so much that he'd make you roast forever. And as a youngster, I had nuns who had us believing that, for sure. Yeah, that's one of the traumas I had to work through in my own personal growth, was to get over the notion that God might hate you, just hate you. So it's a lot of traumas, and it was pre-therapy. I mean, Freud and psychoanalysis and stuff had hit the affluent classes by, I think, the mid-50s or earlier maybe, but not the working class. So they had no notion of therapy or getting stuff off your chest. The guys came back from World War II not talking about it. It was all buttoned down. So they'd use alcohol to handle the stresses and the trauma and the stuff inside of themselves that was churning around with no way out. My dad just receded into passiveness and alcohol. My mom never got identified as an alcoholic. Now, my dad, I think, was clearly depressed, and that would have been a good diagnosis for him. But really, no, not a psychiatric diagnosis. It was a social thing. The guys, the men of that generation of Irish, could not stand up to the withering criticism and judgment of the women, which was rampant. It was just part of the culture to view your husband as a failure. And I think John Gray, in his book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, did such a good job of saying, the average guy just wants to please his wife. He wants to do good. He wants to make her happy. He wants to make her laugh. And to have a good relationship, the woman needs to give the guy lots of strokes, lots of appreciation, and go with the laughter, enjoy the play. But if they're constantly trying to shape the man up, it doesn't go well, because he gets hurt and behaves less well. What's the one book? I love you, you're perfect, now change. The whole notion, you got to shape that person up rather than cheer them up and cheerlead for them, and trust that the more support they have, the happier and nicer and more successful they'll be, rather than it's your job to beat them around the head and shoulders to get them to shape up. So my mom had lots of trauma. She had a dad that had abandoned the family. Same deal. Could not face when those three women, my mom and her sister and their mom, got together. I mean, I got to hear it at night around the family when my dad had gone out to the bar. Their attitudes towards men, and that was part of what I dealt with growing up, was there was no viable path to being a good man. And that's why I got into seminary, because there was a cool priest, and I thought maybe this is the way you can be a man and still be okay. And unfortunately, we haven't gotten past that. In the 80s and 90s, it was men are assholes, they don't get it. It was just assumed men are assholes. Or if a man is in the woods by himself, where no one can hear, is he still wrong? Yeah. And these days, the unfortunate excesses of the Me Too movement has got women trying to have men on a very short leash of what they're allowed to do or say. Otherwise, they're sexist. It's terrible. So we have not grown very much in that regard. Uh, so my mom dealing with her alcoholism with her Southern Comfort Manhattans, uh, and pretty regular, pretty much every day, one or two or sometimes three Southern Comfort Manhattans, and she mostly was a cute, funny, and didn't even get labeled as a drunk, but good times. But it could turn dark. It could turn dark. Once my son who was in with me for the summer, and I had to go to work early the next day. He was going to stay with his grandma, who adored him. Uh, and we went out to a movie, and we came back, and she was drunk. And I could see that I didn't think she was so out of control she couldn't be trusted with him, but I could see he was not comfortable at all. And I said, Terry, you want to come home with Dad? Yeah, let's do that. And I realized, shit, that's what it was like for me when there were no adults around, when everybody was under the spell of alcohol. Scary. And another time the dark side came out. I was staying with her. I just moved back to Chicago, and I'd been out for the night, and I came back, and I could tell she was in an off place. And I said, Mom, you okay? And she looked at me with this icy stare and said, "Lot you would care." And it was like so random, so out of the blue in terms of our relationship. I went, that's not me she's talking about, that's her dad. So it helped me a lot to realize I was dealing with, when she so much found fault with me and always I could have been better, it was the resentment and the anger at the dad who had abandoned her. But a sweet side of her alcohol. Terry, my son, was probably 20 or 19 and had come up to Chicago with a little girlfriend of his, Maria. I want to say she was Maria, not Latina. I think she was Italian. And, or maybe she was, I don't know. Was she in Chicago? I don't know if Maria, I think maybe it was when Terry was staying with me in Chicago for 2 years, for his first 2 years of college. But anyway, Terry and Maria and my mom and I went to Lake Geneva, a classic Chicago getaway to a beautiful lake, and took a house there with enough room for all of us. And Mom didn't seem to mind that Terry and Maria were obvious. I'm not even positive it was Maria. She didn't mind that they were obviously sleeping together. That didn't bother her at all. And we went out for a nice dinner, and Mom got into her third Manhattan. And so by halfway into her third Manhattan, she kept looking at Maria. Maria isn't sounding right. Kept looking at Terry's girlfriend and saying, "You're great. No, really. You're really, really great." Which she was. She was a very cool and fun girl. But and that was her affirming side. Because she had that affirming side. She did have that. It's just that I had disappointed her by not being the prince who could make her happy. So I got 2 messages from her. You're the prince. We waited 9 years for you. You're a miracle baby. You could do anything you want. And she really did send me that signal. You could do anything you want. And that there was value in that. But the second message was, you are an ongoing and complete disappointment to me. But the real way I was a disappointment was that I didn't make her happy, and that was supposed to be my karma, and I could not, because she wasn't happy. She wasn't happy. We, after the day after Christmas one year, I was in from out of town where I was living, and my brother, I think it was her and me and my brother Terry, went downtown to find the perfect hot buttered rum or some kind of drink like that. And we went from bar to bar looking for the perfect one. And that was fun. That was a really nice time. And she had a simple love of nature. She took us down to Grant Park by Buckingham Fountain. She loved to take us down there when we were downtown. And there were like moonflowers out or something, and she thought they were the best thing. She really loved them. And another time I took her to the big nature center on the western suburbs of Chicago, and ducks. Oh, she loved feeding those ducks. And I love these days feeding birds. It's such a great way. What a rush to feed birds. Great. Good.